All right, welcome to a new episode of the You Got the Ron Dude podcast. I'm your host, Ron Jammin. Thank you very much for tuning in. I do appreciate it. Podcast is available on SoundCloud, where you can also download the episode for free. YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. I have those completely updated, and I'm glad to be back on there. So I realize I talked to some people about, because I'm a stand-up buff. I love comedy. Comedians are kind of odd, because it's like you want them to be successful, but you don't want them to have everything, because then they have nothing to complain about. But I realize I talk to people about stuff, and it's like, why am I not recording this stuff? Because comedians these days, it's just such a weird time for comedy, because we're in this big boom, the second boom, and it's probably not going away, like Jeselnik said. But I watch all this content, and because like Too Lazy to Try, Comedy Enforcement, Apologia, Comedia, I'm subscribed to all those channels because it's entertaining. I mean, they pick out things because people are hypocritical or just controversial, or some stuff doesn't work. But I wanted to start by talking about this guy, Jeff Dye. It's funny because now, would have been 16 years ago, I remember seeing him on Last Comic Standing. I wasn't surprised to see him on there, but I was so happy for him, and he was hilarious. And I messaged him. This is probably MySpace, so maybe even 2008. But I grew up with him. We weren't like friends or anything, but we went to the same schools and that. And I knew he was always funny, and we got along just fine in that. Like I said, we never hung out outside of school, as I remember, but it was just cool because that's like the only person I know of, at all from growing up that got into comedy or like became a known figure in that, which is pretty wild because other people, it's just like, not that you have to, be in entertainment, but it's just cool. And I messaged him, I'm like, you're doing it and congrats on everything, whatever I said. And he said, I want to know how you're doing. I don't know if he remembered me, because at that time I wasn't using my Ron Jammin. I was using my actual last name in that. Because MySpace, you put up all your personal information. It was new, fun, exciting. Now it's like, oof. But Jeff, he's a great comic. He's really funny. I've never seen anyone make Rogan laugh that much, that often on his podcast. Not that it's like a challenge, but he's just like a naturally funny guy in that. And but the thing with Mark Maron, like, it's gained a little bit of traction, but it's not like, speaking of Rogan, like him and the Mencia thing. But I thought back to, George Lopez never letting go of the Eric Estrada thing, because he, met him, I think he was on the set of Chips, and he went to shake his hand, and Eric didn't shake his, but shaked other people's, and it's hard to know what was going on, but it's one of those things like, get over it. And Jeff tells a story, about meeting Mark probably about 20 years ago, and just Mark said some stuff that kind of rubbed Jeff the wrong way, because you don't know, when you meet somebody, even if you're comics, you don't know if they're joking or not. Maybe they'll be like, hey, your set was awful, you should quit right now. Because some comics like, well, it's stage time, and 20 years ago, they're all fighting for, not sitcoms really anymore, but there's like not many podcasts out there, and it's kind of like, well, you're challenging people. It's like, get out, you suck, you're terrible, and you want to see if they show up again. But with Jeff, I guess, he just said some stuff about his set, and it's kind of like, oh, you were, one of my heroes, but even Jeff on Howie's podcast, Howie Mandel Does Stuff, he'd said, like, he'd kind of let it go, or wasn't that big of a deal, but then he talked about it and it started getting traction. But it's just one of those things, like, it doesn't hit. It's not that it doesn't feel authentic. I believe it all happened, but even with Mark, saying, like, I don't even know who this guy is, and like, Mark wouldn't remember that, I'm sure. Because Jeff had been doing comedy for a little while, but he wasn't, a name or anything. But with Lopez, it's like, geez, get over it with the Estrada thing. And slamming people, being like, oh, they're never happy and they're not funny in this. It's like, whoa. If it's about your meeting with them, your encounter, okay, but you don't have to be like, oh yeah, they're trash. I don't like them. They're mean to everybody. And now, granted, Mark, he seems like a guy you want to catch on a good day. Because bad day, be like, hey man, your last special was really funny. He's like, okay, not the other ones? You didn't like the other ones? I didn't say that. Never mind. It's like that saying, you don't want to meet your heroes in that, because sometimes they might be underwhelmed. Or I forget, they're just a person, they're doing a job, they've been doing it for a while. Not to make excuses, but with them, it's, oh, thanks. And with George, it's like, if he does his podcast again, he should have Eric on, Because it'd be like, all this build up, and then they're like, oh, I didn't shake your hand. Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I just didn't see you. Or if there was like, a bunch of people around, I was trying to shake everybody's hand. I didn't shake yours. And then it's like, oh, okay. And then it's over. It's not that big of a deal. But to keep bringing it up, it's like, we got it. Now, George, just like Mark, seems like another person you want to catch him on a good day. You can tell that smile lights up a room in that. But otherwise, hey, I liked the George Lopez show. I watched it growing up, and it was really good. It's like, Sabas K, what about the other shows, eh? You don't like them, huh? Something like that. But with Jeff, it's just like, you don't need to do this. If I were him, I wouldn't even do podcasts anymore. Because, like I said, I knew him throughout school and that. He's like naturally funny, but on podcasts trying to start drama. And then with that reality show lady, the Kristen, when he brought that up, it was kind of like, yeah, this just doesn't really fit. Like, he doesn't need to do this. Just keep working on material, putting out specials. Move to Texas. I mean, like I said, he's been on Rogan, 2 or 3 times. Makes him laugh a lot. So I think that's a good fit. But some stuff just comes off as kind of arrogant. And, with a comic, it's like you're trying to be funny. So any flex, it's like, ooh. But Jeff seems like a cool guy. Like, you could talk to him about anything, and he seems approachable. But I just think this thing, it's kind of like, yeah, I'd steer away from it. And Mark is done with the WTF podcast, but Jeff has his Die Hard. That's a great name. That's one of those, like, it's right there. It's like, why didn't I think of it, Because during the pandemic, he had, I think, Jeff Die Needs a Friend podcast, which is really good. But I'm not saying, like, don't go on podcasts, but I'd just be like, just talk about comedy and coming up in the industry, last comic standing, and because the comedy beef, something like this is just like, well, that's it. Like somebody was rude or underwhelming or, in this case, kind of put you down. And it's like, okay, but there's not much to that. I mean, that's like me recording a podcast to be like, this cashier wouldn't even make eye contact with me. Like the whole world's gonna implode, People like, what? You should sue. Oh my gosh. It's like, let it go. Now you can tell your friends about it and that, but you don't need it on tape. But I was kind of conflicted about recording this because it's like I knew the guy growing up, like I said, because we were in, some of the same classes, went to the same schools, but it's really cool to see him. And because from the outside, it's like, well, geez, he has specials out, did Last Comic Standing, been on Rogan a few times, and I wish him all the best. And I think I would say on Bertcast, Bert's podcast, like have him kind of host them, like Mark and Jeff sitting down, they're comfortable in that. But again, it's just like, what's there really to talk about? I mean, if something else happened, okay. But otherwise, it's just like, oh, dude, I was having a bad day. Sorry. Oh, well, that was easy. Okay. Just like the George thing, it's just like there's just nothing really there. And like Tony Hinchcliffe said about, I think Maron and Jeselnik, it's like, well, they come out when they have a special to promote or something, then they'll start trashing people, but then they'll go away. But, Mark's addressed it, and it's just like, well, okay, we're all different people, and nobody's perfect. Like I said about George and Mark, I mean, those are guys you want to catch on a good day. Because otherwise, it's like if they're having a bad day, just like everybody does, you might say, oh my gosh, your last special changed my life, and they just kind of nod at you and, oh, thanks. And then you're like, F that person, And it's like, let it go. People have bad days. Hey, man, I watched your special. I paid to see you. You owe me. It's like, no, you got entertainment for your money. It's not like they owe you their life. But anyways, I'm going to be talking, on this podcast about comics and looking at the good and the bad and stuff. Because, like I said, it's a wild time for comedy. Because I love all the controversy. All the beefs. Why are comics, some of them, torpedoing their own careers? And I'm not talking about these guys. But some of them, it's like, oh, make it funny, But even in this case, it's like, well, if you have a problem with this comic, make a bit about it, or even a sketch on a show, and have people guess who it is, and then years later you reveal who it is, or you have them on your podcast, and they're like, oh my gosh, it was Mark. But there's nothing funny, about what they're saying. It's just, I don't know what the goal is with it. And now with Jeff, it's like, well, you know what that feels like. So with comics, it's like, you be nice, be respectful. But what if you see someone, it's their first time on stage, and then you critique them? They could read that the same way you did the Maron thing. So there's just no win-win. But I would just give up on it. The GoFundMe thing, I watched on Yannick's channel. And that was interesting. It's $26,000 to move from California to Texas, but Jeff apparently deleted it because he raised like a couple $100. So that was interesting. But I don't know, because it's not like, oh, I was kidding. It's like, no, you started up a legit page. But I don't know. But that's another thing. It's like, that's not going to, gain any traction. I don't think. If it did, if it got like millions of views, I'd be like, oh, wow, what's going on? But with Jeff, I just say, keep writing, keep going on stage, focus on specials and that. And I was going to say this in a comment, but it's a joke, but people probably read it as like, oh, wow. But no one's dying of laughter. Name for your next special, right? Let's see if like Mark said that to him. What does that mean? Come on, man, it's a joke. It's like a pun, right? It's fun, man. But Mark, he's just the greatest when he's when he's in a great mood. He's just, what's up, man? Yeah, it's great, all this controversy. No, I don't have beef with anyone. And then you get him when he's, looks like he's questioning everything. But I told my mom last night, I said, I think Mark Maron is a perfect comic. Now, I'm not saying that means that all of his material is funny. That's not a knock. But just hear me out. WTF took off all them years ago. So before Rogan kind of took over as number one in podcasting, Mark has this huge podcast, but even after all that, he's like still bitter Still has bad days, never seems satisfied, and like that's what you want from a comic. Because I don't know his financial situation, but it doesn't matter, because it's just like, with him it's just like, well, more material, more specials, be funny, be relatable. But I think it's a good example, because if you're like, bro, you had the #1 podcast for a while, or if it wasn't #1, it was, in the top 10 or whatever, like, you're still not happy. It's just like, well, it's not that, it's just you're always hungry, it's like, what's the next thing? Or like, you had the #1 podcast, yeah, for a while, for years, so what? Then this guy Rogan comes along and $100 million for, I don't know, man. That's perfect. Take shots at each other, and it's all the drama in comedy is very interesting. Like I said, I watch all those channels and that, but like, I don't want to copy what they do. So with each comic, like, I've written down things, and so hopefully a unique perspective, because even their titles are, being the same. And even the content, it's kind of like, oh, you guys are all covering the same thing at the same time. But there's room for everyone on the internet. So let me know what you think. Like I said, with Jeff, it's awesome to see him, because I've gotten used to it, but it's still like, oh, that's a guy from school. And we actually live pretty close to each other, as I remember, but like I said, I don't think we ever hung out outside of school, but he was always funny. And I remember, early YouTube, because he had a channel, I think he started the year it launched, or maybe the year after. I think I remember like a Starbucks thing, and so he's already doing stuff online. But shout out to Jeff, support his comedy, see him on tour, and yeah, he's hilarious on Rogan. And let me know what you think in the comments. Like this video up, share, subscribe, rate, review, all that fun stuff. I appreciate your time. I will see you next time on the You Got the Wrong Dude podcast. And boy, I need an outro. But anyways, I'll see you next time. If you have any suggestions, because I already have like a lot of episodes planned, but I don't have to do them in any order, so let me know. Alright, thanks.